Venn diagram does overlap in certain places where and that's like my hard foundation. If it's cordial, like I said, then having 4 amazing parents is better than just having 2.
Please welcome my son, Jordan Stutzman. Welcome, Jordan. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. You're welcome. We have so much to cover, and I don't want to waste any time, so forgive me for jumping right in. I want to start with your childhood because I think it's the thing that is so relatable for parents who are listening and who are looking for feedback on how to maybe navigate either parenting or especially co-parenting, I think, with when their kids are in a 50-50 custody arrangement. Because for parents, these situations can be incredibly nerve-wracking, and we always think the worst. And we think about all the ways our kids' childhood will be compromised. So I want to get your perspective, now being on the other side of it. Can you recall your earliest memory of the custody arrangement and how the experience for you evolved over time? Because I know it did.
Well, my earliest memories, I mean, it was just, I think your reality as a kid is your reality, and until you get older, you don't realize like, there's so many varying ways to have a childhood.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like that was normal. Just going back and forth. Of course, I didn't like it, but it wasn't like a constant, like at a certain age, I think after like 5 or 6 years old, especially once I had like healthy on both sides, I guess I would say, like, and I, my stepmom, who's my stepmother today, was, with my father, like going back and forth from there was, it just my reality. And, of course I didn't like it, and I didn't really like realize how different it was until I moved to San Diego, and I had my own place, and I had a roommate, but I never had to move ever again. Like it was like versus the first
one bed.
Yeah. The 15 years before that, it was every 7 days I, sleeping in a different bed. So I guess there maybe wasn't for you a separation between, cause it started off with you, because we split up when you were 7 months old, and you did every other weekend for the most part, or less, every other weekend or less, up until right before you turned 6. And then you went 50-50 week on, week off. So you don't recall, are you saying that you don't recall when it went to because I had you, I guess that would be 80% of the time to 50. So that wasn't like for you, it wasn't traumatic, is that? Yeah, well, yeah, I definitely like prior to 6 years old, like most of my memories are with you because I spent most of my time with you.
Right.
So I do have key memories with my dad, especially my dad was one who moved around a ton. Yeah. I think we probably moved like 3 times ever. Yeah. My dad probably moved like 10 times. No, 3. You're right, 3. 2 or 3 times for us, but 10, 11 times probably with my dad. So, and varying different kinds of places, so it was all around the area. So, I just have I have like key memories, but they're faint. Yeah.
I think it obviously depends on each circumstance, and from person to person it's going to be different, but I think it's good for me to hear that, because I thought that when we went from every other weekend to week on, week off, that it was going to be this huge change for you, and it was going to be traumatizing, and it was going to be like a defining moment in your life that you may look back on with, because the truth is you did have a hard time at the time, but in time, like kids do, they start to assimilate, and they start to, I think they're pretty resilient in these circumstances. So it ended up being a real positive thing. But what you're saying is you don't really recall the change between one to the other.
I mean, no, it wasn't like a hard transition in my life.
That's good.
And I think for, like, this might be, I don't know how to say this exactly, but I think for a lot of people in that situation, like the parents make it a lot harder for the kid. So it becomes like a harder thing. The parents are fighting. The kid sees that. You guys kind of kept that, if you guys fought at all, really, like you guys kept that completely away from me. So it wasn't like it was just normal. Like you got to remember too, like you and my dad, I have 0 memories of you guys ever being together. Right. That's not a reality of my existence. Yeah. So like this is my normal, and so if you guys weren't battling it out, you guys kept yourselves cordial. I was just like, yeah, this is this is just like no questioning that was just how it was, and I was already seeing my dad sometimes, so it just
So it was comfortable transition, which is probably why it wasn't.
And maybe it's worth touching on, like, not like going around it, that like after, you know, you guys split up when I was 1 year old. My dad was with another. He remarried.
Your sister's mom.
Yeah, my oldest sister's mom, for a couple of years there, and then met my stepmother, who is currently my stepmother and has been for a decade and a half plus. Mm-hmm. So once my dad met my current stepmother, things really took a turn for the absolute best.
Well, that's actually when you that's when you went 50-50.
Right, which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was, at that point, he was stable, they were stable, and it was, we agreed on it then. Before that, it wasn't so much. So, okay, I think that, you know, like, I think what you hit on about, I think the parents make it harder, that's a really good point. I think, you know, I somehow intuitively knew that if I were to make a huge deal about this, either to your dad or to you, it would not translate well in your experience over there. So even though I was dead inside over it, like I cried myself to sleep, it was very, very difficult transition for me because I had you by myself for 6 years and then giving you up 50% of the time. It was very, very difficult for me. But what you said about the parents is huge because I think that we put our own issues onto our kids. And we assume they feel how we feel, and we don't allow them to, and also too, it's a burden for them to carry around. Like, oh, mom is sad, mom is upset that I'm at my dad's house.
Or mom is drunk, mom can't handle this, you know, like mom is binging. Like I know I have friends that have gone through divorce in their, you know, teen years, and their parents, you know, go off the deep end in one way or another. And it's like, they have to deal with that. Yeah. It's like, you guys never put me in a scenario to have to pick up your guys' mess.
No, it doesn't mean it wasn't hard. Right. I mean, it was, I would say in all of my 45 years, the single hardest thing I've ever been through is that. And I've been through some stuff. It's very unnatural to separate from your child after you've had them to yourself for so long. And so it was painful for me, but you would never know it. And you're right, your dad and I it took us a long time. It took us about 5 years. People are always surprised now when they find out we're friends, and I'm friends with Jordan's stepmom, Carolyn, and they're always surprised. But you got to think, we've been split for 20 years. And so, I would say the first 5 years were contentious. I mean, it was a lot of that had to do with who he was with at the time. But once he met your stepmom, Carolyn, and she's like the biggest peacemaker ever. And then I was with Mark, who's the same way. I think the step parents make it or break it a lot of times. And so your dad and I were able to repair. And then the fightings, we really never fought after that. We may have disagreed, but it wasn't ugly anymore. And I think, that's advice for step parents too out there. Like, you really hold a lot of power to have influence on your husband or wife and the kind of father or co-parent they're going to be. So you have actually gone on to say that we were after high school, we drove, and we're going to get to this later, but we drove down to San Marcos, San Diego County, where you went to college. You were down there for 2 years. And it was on that drive that, you know, obviously we were talking a lot, and you said that that arrangement was the biggest gift. Like, in my mind at the time, it was going to be this huge curse and compromise on your life, and it was going to do nothing but take away. But you articulated so well that it was actually the opposite. And I want you to share with our listeners, because I know there's going to be people listening who have kids in this situation.
Yeah. Well, I'll try my best to kind of, you know, say it from the heart the same way that it was then, because I remember that. And what I really meant by that is that, like, I would not have, I think what I said that hit you the most was, I would not have wanted to have it with either way. Like, I would not have wanted to just have you and Mark as my parents, or just my dad. And like, if I could pick the more normal scenario of just single household living, I would not want, if I had A, B, and C laid out in front of me, I would absolutely choose to live in both. Because you guys have both taught me completely kind of different things, but there's also things of the Venn diagram does overlap in certain places where and that's like my hard foundation. And I think when you have, you know, and if it's cordial, like I said, then having 4 amazing parents is better than just having 2. And I mean, oh my gosh, you guys' personalities are so different the way you guys.
What are some of the differences between like
family structure and
our home and their home, or our family and their family? Because I know we couldn't be more different. What are some of the differences, like some of the positives you took from each?
Oh, well, I mean, you guys have taught me how to be like a really good person, and like how to like be like responsible, and like you guys have taught me a lot about like my faith on this side of the family with you, and my dad has taught me a lot about, and then one of the colliding things is money. That's one of the things you guys have both taught me a lot about money.
Being responsible.
And responsibility regarding money and different ways to do that, because that's one of the biggest differences is kind of how like financial things are thought of, but yet you guys are both financially responsible and like, but in 2 kind of very different ways. I think it's really cool. I think that's important that children know that, as you know. But my dad really taught me how to not take life too seriously, and like really how to have fun. He taught me that family matters more than anything, and that you know, you don't get back certain times of your life. So like that's important. But then on the same, so it's like you only get this certain time of your life once, so live it the right way. But then it's also like don't waste it. It's like and that's also something that collided on both sides where if that makes sense. It's hard to
I understand.
Articulate the same way.
I think we prioritized structure, and we prioritized schedules, and we prioritized having a routine. I also prioritized, I mean, you know me, I'm like big on nurture, obviously. And, you know, I was a stay-at-home mom too, so that was probably part of it. And we didn't have, not to say we didn't have fun. I mean, I know we had fun, but it's like we did not prioritize fun the same way your dad did. Your dad really made sure that you guys were always having fun. Like you guys went away every summer. You went out of town on the weekends. You were always doing things. And if you were only with us, that would have been missing from your life. And like living in the moment like that, like what to your point. So that's a huge deal, because I would feel bad now knowing that, oh my gosh, we never took you on a single vacation. I mean, I think we did. We took you to Disneyland, but yeah, it is a big deal. And I think that parents, that, you know, you have to try to see the good in, like there are issues that, I mean, there were always things that maybe he didn't agree with that I did, or I didn't agree with that he did. He might have thought I was too soft on Jordan, and I might have thought he was too hard on you. Like that was probably our main thing. We didn't have beef over it, but it was, you know, it was understood that we probably both disagreed on that kind of thoughts, on that kind of stuff. But the good outweighed the bad at the end of the day. And also too, I feel like the more flexible you are, and the more you sort of like, give grace to the other parent, the more grace they give you. So like if you wanted to spend an extra couple of nights with me, and he said yes, it made me want to give him grace when he asked. So it was like we had this understanding over time. So being the first, do you realize that you're one of the first, like the first generation of kids that started doing this? Because I feel like in my generation and ones before me, I didn't know anybody growing up that was doing a 50-50 arrangement. Are you aware? Yeah, no, it was like every other weekend, or like there was no arrangement. So you were like among the first, and I find it super interesting because it's your generation now that can reflect on it and talk about like this is what it was like, because a lot of parents they have anxiety over it.
Yeah, I don't think about that, and when I do think about like my alternative, which would be like staying 50, or rather staying 2 weekends a month, you know, 4 days a month. I'm seeing like kind of how my sister was, my older sister.
She's not older than you, but the older of the two is what you're saying.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. She's 17.
Yeah.
She spent, you know, 4 days a month with my dad, and all the rest of the time was with her mother. And like, imagine that being my scenario. I couldn't, like, I feel like, it's unfair. Like if you have two, like, you know, functioning sides, then you need to give, you know. it's better for the child to have that time spent. And, you know,
one of the hardest things I think for parents is they don't know what they're, you know, it's such a part of us to want to know that our kids are safe and what they're doing, like, you know, and when they're not in our care, we don't know, and we're not entitled to that when they're in the other parents' care. We're not entitled to know all that. And that is a really hard thing, I think, for parents. And so I think that's where, you know, you just have to focus on the good stuff. I mean, believe me, there's plenty of things I'm sure that I did not enjoy about the situation. But I think the more I could see that there were certain things about it that he was getting that I wasn't able to give, because I was also disabled for a lot of that time. So it was like, yeah, there was a lot that they were able to pick up and help out with.
Well, one thing that I'll just mention that's, and I should have said it, you know, earlier when we were kind of really comparing the two different families, but my dad gave me confidence and taught me how to defend myself and put me into various, you know, martial arts, from wrestling to jiu-jitsu but like that is like fundamental to who I am. So like, can you imagine if he didn't have, you know, having me 4 days a month, there's no way he could control whether or not I was, or, you know, because I needed him to control that. He forced me to join wrestling in 7th grade, and that changed my life.
Right.
So like, if he wasn't allowed by the court to have that big of an influence on my life might be different.
We never went to court. So
that's what I'm saying. But like, let's say the court ruled, you know, forever that, you know, until I turned 18, that he only had 4 days a month to be with me. It's like, I would be influenced entirely differently, and I needed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that,
And it ties into, like you said, I mean, during that same time, you were, you know, disabled, the worst that you were out of your entire journey. It was, you know, some of the worst. And, you know, and Mark was working, you know, and Mark's taught me a lot about masculinity too, in so many other ways, and providing and care, and like
stability,
stability and, oh my God, like things that my dad, you know, like,
he didn't value quite as much.
Exactly. So I just feel like it's this whole balance where, like, this whole yin yang of, there's like 4 different.
Yeah, your dad's value of family is unmatched. The fact that he is it's almost like mafia style. Don't go against it. You know, like, it is really unmatched. And I admire him for that. And I think I think he instilled that in you. I bet that's the kind of father you're going to be. Where I am more, do what you want. If you want to spend the holiday with sons, it's fine. I would like to see you, but it's okay. Like, I don't put those restrictions on you at all. Like, I really want you to just do what you want to do. You know, I would keep you home with me forever and never, like, have you leave the house if it was up to me. But I just, you know, I know what's best for you. I always want you to do what you want to do. And so I'm always afraid to put that on you. But the fact that your dad's really instilled that your whole life, the value of family, it's always brought you back to your roots. But at my house as well, even though I'm not the one that instilled it, family's family, and it's always brought you back to your roots. And you've always put a high priority on it, even as when you didn't have to anymore. Like, you can do whatever you want now. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do wonder if there's any advice that you would have for parents or step-parents even, who either are in this situation now with their children or who could be looking at going through this situation. What would be, looking back on it now, where do you think the parents have what's the biggest role that the parents have in order to make this go as seamlessly as possible for the child?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you know, I have to say this is that, like, I'm not in a perfect position to give advice, you know, having not been in their position. And of course, I should thank all step parents for being there, for doing that, for taking that charge. Because I know that's not easy, and it's different. It's entirely different. I mean, kids are different. Some parents are going to have a way harder time than Mark did, right? And
Carolyn.
Or an easier time for sure, right? Like, there's definitely easier kids out there than me. But I think it's important to, going back to kind of how we started this a little bit, it's important to make it about them, and to, you know, get out of your own way and really look at the big picture. Remember that this is their life forming, and that, you know, this, like, it's really important, the input, especially at that young age. Like, I'm not sure, you know, I guess we're talking 0 to 18, right? But especially like pre-12-year-old, like really like, you know, treat them like your own child, but you know, move at their own pace. You know, give them the love that you would. You know, I think, you know, I honestly, I think it might be easier for folks who already have their own child as biological, because they understand how that works. I think I really, it must be hard. It's hard to imagine like something that Mark got into where it was like he had never had his own child before, and he jumped into that position with me. And then, you know, now he has Jasmine, but you know, I mean, I would just say do what Mark, ask Mark for advice. Seriously, because I mean, he was just there for me, and he was so not pushy. I will say, Mark never made it, not that I can remember, made it a point to try to like be my dad.
No. He kind of followed your lead on things.
Never tried to be my dad. He never tried to like, let's just, you know, try. He never even tried to take me out. Just him and I, just one-on-one, just to like force me to, you know, bonding time. Like that was never the thing. Like he met me where
you probably just don't remember.
Well, like but like he never like did anything that I didn't like. Like
no. But you guys,
we bonded over things that
like soccer and stuff. You guys would do that.
100% sports like that. Like he met me where I was at. Like I loved soccer. Cool. He was going to become the soccer coach because that was his shit too.
And your dad loved wrestling. Your dad became the wrestling coach.
Exactly.
It's
right.
Like kind of find that commonality.
Right.
That you have. I have a girlfriend who doesn't have children of her own biologically, but she's got 2 step sons who they like work. She's a competitor, a fitness competitor, and the boys like working out, and so they bond over that. And so it's that's like awesome. Find that one thing, yeah. So all right, well, yeah, hopefully that's helpful. And you know, one of my goals is to actually get your dad and Carolyn on here with Mark and I to do an episode on that. So
that would be awesome. Yeah, and just to say like Mark, like he bonded with me on things like music, you know, like where I spoke up and said, oh, I like that. He went down that, you know, path, whether it was.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because at first I'm like, what do you mean he didn't bond with you? But what you're saying is he didn't push things on you that you were not interested in.
He wasn't like, I like this. I think this is going to be good for Jordan, so Jordan needs to get some of this. It wasn't like that.
No.
You know, he just kind of was like.
He followed your lead on things. Yeah. Yep, I agree. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a bit. We're going to talk about this metamorphosis that you went through, because if you guys knew Jordan back when he was younger, which some of you will have and some of you won't, he was the sort of kid who he didn't ever finish his assignments. He was very ADHD. You know, he was the kid that always stayed in during recess, and just very disheveled. And like if you went to the school, like you could always spot his desk because his was one that had papers pouring out of it and like books all over the floor, and like just nothing like he is now. And then there was, you know, he's had a couple defining areas of his life that has, I think, been like little milestones. And I think one of the first ones was wrestling, when you got involved in wrestling when you were 13. I want to talk about how it shaped you, because I know it shaped you, you know, not only physically, because you got in amazing shape, but emotionally and psychologically. And it really laid that framework for later. And just in general, I think that sports sort of does that, because one of the quotes that I took from our pre-interview that you said is, you know, pressure makes diamonds. And so I want you to talk a little bit about, because I think we are so, as parents, it is our gut instinct to protect and coddle our kids. And we're always having to work against that, especially, and when they're young, great. But when they're 13, it's time to sort of like, you know, you have to sort of go resist that instinct a little bit. And I want you to talk a little bit about your experience with when you got into wrestling and what wrestling was like for you and how it really changed you from that ADHD chaotic kid to where you ended up going.
Yeah. Well, you know, I will say, like, on the topic of just ADD for a second, wrestling was great because nothing had ever exerted me to that extent. So actually, like, I will say, like, after like a hard ass day of wrestling, and it was the hardest I'd ever pushed my body ever at that time. And still, like, I don't push myself as hard as I was they pushed me in 8th grade, right? Like,
because you started in 7th, right?
I started in 7th grade, right? Like, but just as an example, like, I don't work half as hard in the gym these days that I did when I was, 13 years old. you know, like I jumped into that and got my ass whooped, like by the conditioning. And that's what changed me. It was the month and a half of conditioning before the season. So the wrestling season started early November, and conditioning started mid-September. So, you know, the school had just started, 7th grade. I knew that I was going to be doing that. And I, you know, I was just normal. But discipline was not something that I had. It was, you know, and I think that my dad probably knew that was waiting for me at that age. And, you know, he disciplined me in like structure and like household stuff like that. But as far as like, competitive discipline or having like physically having the mental will and the willpower to say like, I'm going to keep doing something. I'd never been through that. I mean, the hardest thing I'd been through prior to that was like running in soccer, right? Getting my heart rate up. Wrestling completely destroyed me. And there were so many times where I thought I was going to quit. I mean, I was throwing up. I was, you know, crying after practices.
Drenched
in sweat. And like, keep in mind, like this is getting into winter months, you know, like sometimes it's raining and cold and I'm sweaty and I'm tired and I'm hungry and it's like, and I'm like 13. So like it taught me like how to like go through shit. And I think I decided, I decided again in certain other parts of my life and there were other defining moments, but, that era, those couple of months of conditioning prior to the wrestling season where I decided not to quit, even though every day I wanted to quit. Like I'd never been through something like that. I was just being shooken.
Boot camp almost.
Yeah. And I held on basically. And
it's really that what they do is they put you guys through that to like really anybody that's not going to, like it's cutting the fat, so to speak.
And yeah, I'll touch on that. So we did not have tryouts. There's no such thing as wrestling tryouts. It was just the conditioning was so hard for that first month and a half. And then if you didn't show up, you were just off. You were done.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't show up, if you didn't put in the work, they asked you not to come back. I didn't want to be one of those people. Like I just decided, and like there were people all around me dropping off, just stopping mid practice. You know, showing up, and just never showing back up again.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to be that person.
Yeah. And we're talking, it was like 5 days a week, right? Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday,
and about, I think 3 hour practices, I want to say, like 3 to 6.
And this is just conditioning. Yeah. And then every Saturday, and then it gets into real wrestling.
Then you have the tournaments on Saturdays all day.
Right. Yeah. After that conditioning, once November started, it was, you know, 6 days a week and then all day on that 6th day, Saturday.
Yeah.
The only day I had without wrestling was Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you continued the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade?
Yep.
And then 11th you stopped. Yeah.
11th and 12th is when I transitioned into weight training.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So in terms of, I mean, I remember sitting in the parking lot waiting for you to come out. And a lot of times, you know, I want to say it was like 3:30 to 6:30 or 3 to 6. So, you know, you get there and you wait. And they're not coming out. And you're like texting, like, what's going on? And you learn real quick that in wrestling, there is no end time. Like they just decide when they're done with you, they're done with you.
Yeah.
And something that you talked about in the pre-interview is that really changed you in the way, like when you work out in the gym, even because like if you say, I'm going to do 10 reps or 12 reps, you always do an extra few reps. Or if you are on, you know, if you're running on the treadmill and you say you're going to stop at 20 minutes, you always add a few extra minutes because like wrestling kind of taught you that because it forces you to push yourself a little bit longer beyond what you think your limitations are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You gotta mess with yourself. You gotta like be your own like psychopath coach sometimes. Like because, and that's what it instilled. Like it's really important in the gym to not get complacent and to not get comfortable lifting the same weights if you want to, you know, continue progressing. And so you have to have that psycho that like, because in wrestling, it's a real person. It's actually your coach, and you're scared of that person, and they are like, you're not allowed. You're literally not allowed to stop sprinting.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to stop wall sitting. You're not allowed to stop like wrestling, drilling. Just
and they're
drilling,
like
and drilling. And you're in your head, you're like, when the fuck is it gonna stop? My heart is gonna explode. When is this gonna stop?
And they're like drill sergeants, right?
Yeah.
Like you're scared of them. You don't want to give up.
Yeah. And then like, God forbid someone messes up, someone starts slacking, guess what? Restart the time. Let's go.
Everybody.
Let's go. Yep. So it taught you that it's like there is no end in sight. So, and that's so key. There's zero end in sight. You have no control over the ending. So just, and the only possible thing you can do to make it end sooner is do your absolute best.
Yeah. So
you're just like, I don't know when I'm going to do my absolute best until it stops. Like there's no, and I don't know how to explain that. Like,
I think it broke you and then it built you back up.
Like when you're like, a lot of times people like, in school, you run the mile and like you run like 4 laps around the track. And then right as you're getting to the end of your 4th lap, a lot of people are like, oh, they end their stride as they're kind of pulling up to the finish line. Wrestling taught me to like sprint through that 4th lap. I'm sprinting through that finish line, and then I'm still gonna run an extra like couple hundred feet just for the fucking just because doing a normal mile is like what everyone else did. Like that is like the mindset you have to have in wrestling to like be on the varsity team and to like, actually compete with some of these guys. And I was jumping into it where there's guys on my team that have been doing this since 3rd grade. They've been wrestling since they were 5 years old, some of them.
Yeah.
So, and I was getting my ass whooped by kids that were smaller than me, getting my ass whooped by kids that were uglier than me, fatter than me. Yeah. Like, so it messes, so true. It messes with your ego.
Yeah.
Too. And it teaches you that it's not about, what you think about yourself is not everything.
And you could never prejudge what somebody looked like on the outside, how they would be in a match. Because they could look either scrawny and be freaking amazing, or they could be overweight and like look like they're out of shape. But you never know until you're in that match actually how they're, because people, it is a crazy sport that way.
It's an equalizer.
It's an equalizer.
That's what I like about martial arts. It's like, it doesn't matter like where you come from or like how much money you have for some people, like it's, or like even how tall you are, like to a certain extent, like fighting is like it's an equalizer.
It's a really good point. I do want to talk about a little bit about the importance of this. A lot of this circles back to parenting, because a lot of the people listening are going to be parents or moms. The importance of exposing our kids to adversity while they're young to be better prepared adults. Again, it's counterintuitive because, especially for moms, all we want is to coddle and nurture our kids. So it's so counterintuitive. And especially when you have privileged kids, which my kids, when you think of privilege, you think just kids that don't have to worry about certain things, and they're provided for. They don't have to wonder where their next meal is coming from. They don't have to, raise their brothers and sisters, and their parents are at home. Like I was a stay-at-home mom. Like there was a lot of these little luxuries that a lot of families don't have.
It's not to cut you off, but I have a lot. Actually, I know quite a few friends who like had a part-time job while they were in high school and gave money to their
parents.
Yeah, the money went to their family.
I know who you're talking. There's a couple of them. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Or they work for the family and they don't make any of the money. They're needed at the family company or the small business.
So that's like built, and I don't know if I call that adversity, but it's built in like it's building something in their life to help them. Yeah. So when you don't have that, you have to manufacture something for your child because, this is my belief, think what you want. Otherwise, you're putting them a little bit behind when they launch into adulthood. So it prepares them. So it gives them just an added benefit. So I feel like that's the genius of sports. And I'm not like a crazy sports mom. We all know this. Like I've done and will do whatever my kids are wanting to do because I know it's good for them, but I'm not that mom that like needs my kids to always be doing something, but I do see the value in it. I know that wrestling for you is a life saver, a life changer. And what are your thoughts on exposing like those that because you went to a high school. Obviously there were some kids that were more underprivileged, but in terms of like the friends of yours or teenagers who were they were in sports and stuff, do you find that they were better set up for life after high school? Like, is there an argument to be made for that?
I think it's not a direct one-to-one, but I think it is better for the kid. It's better for their confidence. It's better, especially as a guy. I speak for the other guys out there. It's going to be probably net benefit You know, there are guys, of course, that, you know, totally, you know, like football team guys that just dicked off. Like they're not actually there for the sport. They're there for the side benefits, and that exists for sure.
And the status. And
exactly. Like 100% that does exist. But I think to achieve excellence in sports is really good. And it could be fucking gymnastics. It could be, it could be shooting bow and arrow, like whatever your kid is into.
Yeah. And you know what, I shouldn't even limit just sports, you know, even if they're music or artist, or say they're in theater, like they're just a discipline of some sort.
Yeah. The discipline, well, it's good for it to be somewhat physical.
Yeah, I agree.
Like even like, even if your kid like fell in love with playing pool, like playing, like at least it's like somewhat physical. I think it's good to like let them dive into something like that and to have that competition. Right. Like not everyone's going to be inclined to be competitive. I'm not the most competitive person ever. Like I don't like.
You're not, and I'm not either.
Yeah, but
you can hold your own though.
Yeah, but you need to be put in scenarios.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Also wanted to tell listeners about when you were 15, 16, and I'm sure you'll remember this. So around that time is when I started losing weight and working out and started doing my competition prep for the fitness competition. And I was listening to it because my trainer would listen to them, and then I heard about him. Would listen to a lot of motivational videos or podcasts or YouTube, you know, videos and stuff like that. And so I just thought, I remember thinking at the time, like, Jordan should hear this. Jordan should hear this. So I would play him in the car on audio just to listen to, and hoping that you would hear some of it. We're talking about like 15, 16 years old. So Jasmine's age, basically. And then I decided somewhere in there, because I don't know if you're ever really listening to it, because back then there were no AirPods, but you'd be like twiddling on your phone maybe. Would ask for money. And I, you know, because I was a stay-at-home mom, there wasn't a lot of chores to do. And I was really bad about saving chores for you guys. I said, I'll tell you what, every time you want $10, you have to watch a video, like 30 to 60 minute video. I'll give you $10. So if you want to, you know, $20, like we would come up with, remember this? Mm-hmm. So how did was that effective?
You know what? So to be honest, I don't think about that moment too often because these days I love
I know you do.
And I completely delve into it. So I have to give you credit because you were the first person to introduce me to it.
Expose you to it, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure that had, that was it. But I just needed to, like, I was spinning my wheels, like on that topic of like kind of getting into that content online and because there's so much good stuff in that realm, like, you know, the influencers and the people you put on, like, I mean, I can name them, like even
Rogan,
like
Bill, you,
Rogan, Impact Theory,
Lewis Howes, School of Greatness, all those.
100%. That and I don't listen to every last one of those. I do listen to some of them, like Modern Wisdom too, but that it didn't take long before I was listening to them just by myself,
on your own without getting paid.
yeah, and it wasn't always the same topics or conversations, but what would happen was they would have someone would have, especially Rogan was really the one that caught it, because Rogan is the most entertaining of them all, probably. Makes sense why he would be, but
yeah.
Once I like saw the Kevin Hart interview with Rogan and like someone that like I really,
Goggins was a big one for you.
Well, yeah, we can circle back to Goggins. That's but that, like, once I was like, oh, this is like awesome. Like I just didn't understand why, like, I didn't know this yet, and so I just started watching all the stuff. One of the other really big ones one of the first Rogans I remember you ever listening to was Leah Remini.
Really? That was one of the first ones?
Yeah, first ones I ever remember you listening to.
Okay.
Just and then her whole story. And that, like, I don't know, I got interested pretty early on in podcasts. Like now podcasting is huge. Here we are.
Yeah.
But
no, by no accident.
Right. But that was 8 years ago.
Yeah, I want to say you were like around 16 when we started doing that.
21 now. So
yeah. And before I knew it, I would overhear you listening in your room. But I just think that, you know, kids at that age are such well, they're gonna be influenced by someone. You know, they just are. They're very impressionable. Somebody's gonna catch their attention. They're gonna be influenced by someone. And sometimes I could say the same things, you know, probably not in as good of a way as these people on these videos are talking about. I could say the same things and repeat it. But when it's coming from somebody other than you, somehow it resonates more with teenagers. And so I just intuitively knew that. And so that's why I decided, like, you know what, I bet, and a lot of them were male too, where I felt like you could relate a little bit. So I know that was when you were in wrestling and weight training. So your disciplinary the approach to life had already begun, and
it had begun, but it was not locked in. Like
it wasn't locked in.
It took until I moved out of the house, and that's when things really started to switch. Like it almost like was a snap change. Especially when it comes to fitness later on, but.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
That the seed was planted early on, that's why I was fit in high school. I was a different kind of fit, but I was always athletic.
Totally. Always. Yeah, you were. So you moved out, and you graduated in 2020, and you moved down to San Diego County for 2 years. And initially, when we spoke about this in the pre-interview, when you moved down there. You had a few months where you were just kind of like, not wild would be the wrong word, but you didn't have a lot of discipline, or you didn't really care about it so much. And then there was like a defining moment that happened that's really changed everything for you since then. And I want the listeners to hear about this because I feel like you talk about the voice in the back of your head. And you've talked about that a lot with me, like you have the voice in the back of your head that nags you and stuff. And I feel like, I don't know if that comes from the years in your teenage years where we sort of were pouring into you, or we were putting you in front of things that would sort of develop that conscience or not. I don't know where that voice comes from, or if that's just innately in you. But the fact that it's there at all, some kids don't have one. Just here to say, So anyway, so I want you to talk about like going off the rails and how you got back on.
Yeah. Yeah, so not as far off the rails as most people do go.
Definitely not.
I actually stayed relatively responsible.
Yeah.
With all things considered, I did 1 year, and this is during my first year. Well, it wasn't even a full year, but it was my first couple of months of that first year moving in, and that first year I was in college and doing some part-time work as well. But yeah, I was having a ton of fun. Eating whatever I wanted, I was never really a drinker, but, I was just drinking. And really, when I say I'm drinking whenever I want, I mean soda.
I know, that's
that's actually
drug of choice.
Yeah. Man, just like pounding Coke Zeros and just.
How much did you gain during that period?
Well, in high school, I was, I wrestled in the low 150s, but I was smaller. But I got up to about 185. And for I'm 5'11". And change.
So you gained about a good 20 pounds at least.
Yeah. And that's what they say, right? When you move out, it's what they call it, freshman
15 usually, but right? Yeah. You've always been overachiever. Kidding.
But, I looked at myself and I could see it happening, but I didn't want to do anything about it. I was having fun. I was also, really, I was smoking a lot, too. I was, smoking a ton of weed right when I got down there and just living life, and met this girl who I thought was – this is, December. So I moved in August, was wilding, beach days, just having time in my life, but really just not getting anything done, not living a productive lifestyle. And I think this is why this happened, partly, if you believe in things happen for a reason, is that I met this girl who I was, infatuated with. And I couldn't believe she lived 3 minutes away from me, a mile away. She lived on campus. And I would see her as soon as we met, I would see her every other day. We were just instantly connected. It felt like I had met my San Diego love. And it happened right away. I was just stoked. I was high on life, right? Yeah. And essentially, I'd come back for Thanksgiving I'd come back for Thanksgiving. We'd been together for a month or two or something like that. And then she essentially just drops it on me as soon as I get back in town. That she was the night before, she was do you feel like you would want to make this more serious and actually be my boyfriend? And I was yeah, absolutely. I don't want to take it too fast, but yeah, absolutely. The next morning she's I don't want to be your girlfriend. Oof. And then I never saw her again. She just left. And I couldn't believe it. It's I'm sure this is what divorce feels like times 10.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because it's your entire life is you feel there's hard rails on this one path. And then it's 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 like you just got in a car accident.
Yes.
Like you just fell off the side of the hill.
Oh, yes.
What the fuck? Like, you know, and that's that. I probably got a little taste of that, you know, relative to.
Yeah, it's painful, right?
So, yeah. And that changed me. There was like a couple of days where I was like, I probably could have gone into like a deeper depression, but I found, dude, I don't even know how I got to it on YouTube. I don't know what I was watching beforehand. I think I might have
I sent it to you.
You might have sent it to me. I might.
I know. I'm almost positive that I did.
I think I might have already been watching Rogan's. I think.
You know what? I sent you the impact theory. We're talking about David Goggins. David Goggins was doing. He had a book that just came out called "Can't Hurt Me," and so he was going on all the major podcasts. So I think I sent you the impact theory interview, and then what you saw is the Rogan interview.
Yeah, and I remember watching this other random Rogan interview, like some guy that was in prison before, and then I think I clicked on it just on the sidebar, or it was the next, it just came up, and you know, I just maybe saw the name. I don't actually remember exactly how I got to that video, but I remember when that video started. If you guys have seen the Goggins video, it'll lock you in as soon as you start it, like the first time he ever went on Rogan, and I don't know how to explain it. It just changed. Like I just like understood that like almost like the heart is like this is exactly what I needed. Like it was like his message and his voice was able to tell me that like, no, dude, this is exactly what you needed. And it was like right as it had happened. So I was like, dude, like I have all this fuel in my gas tank now to now become a better person. Yeah. And like I just, as soon as it happened, I found that that video changed me, and I turned all that like hurt into like literal like fuel. Yeah. And it was crazy. It felt crazy. And like the next, I don't know, you know, actually I don't know if it was the next day. You know what? It was the next day. Yeah. It was the next day.
Cause you called me afterwards.
Yeah. It was the next day. I'm like doubting myself, but no, like I remember like this was like, I snapped, and I woke up the next morning, put on my shit that I laid out the night before to go run. And my only goal was to run around my little apartment complex, which was less than half a mile, right? I'd ran miles in high school, but that less than half, like that 0.4 mile run of like a 4 mile per hour pace made me throw up. I threw up all over my front path to like walking back up to my door. And I was like, damn, like I was so ashamed of myself that I'd let myself like fall off, because like that never would have happened in like the year before or 2 years ago. I'd just been treating my body like shit, and you know, I just decided it was time to lock in. So the next day I did the same thing, got nauseous again. I don't think I threw up though. And then ran a little bit further. Then that 2 weeks later, I was doing 2 laps around the apartment complex instead of 1. And then I found the courage. I don't know why I was like nervous to go back into the gym. It felt like, I felt like ashamed to like.
I know. I remember what I would ask you. Well, when you called me after you ran the first time, you said, "Mom, I'm telling you this because I'm changing my life, and I want, you know, I don't know if you want me to hold you accountable or like just, I'm not sure what it was, but you wanted to make sure that I understood." And I was like, "Okay, great. Good for you." I was so excited for you. But I remember asking you, even before that, after you moved in, I'm like, "Have you gone to the gym yet? Have you gone to because they have the nice free gym there." And you kept saying, "No, I can't." And I'm like thinking like, you used to love to work out. Like what happened? But anyway, you did find your way back to the gym.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I remember that though. I remember like, I was thinking like, why haven't I gone? Like I've lived here 3 months. I haven't gone to the gym yet. Like, you know, like I remember thinking that. And then it was like, okay, back to the gym. And that was like, once I got back in that gym and that became my happy place, it was over. Like I just like it was also an easy distance. It was connected to my apartment complex. I probably had to just walk a couple hundred feet, and it was the perfect setup for me. So I just started shopping at Sprouts, started just, you know, buying, you know, meats and veggies, and changed up my diet.
You started cooking
that actually came later. I will say that came like within the next couple of months. But at first it was just step by step. You know, after like about a month or so of just running around my apartment complex, got in the gym, stuck to that hardcore. They had a punching bag in there, bought a pair of gloves, and that became like my go-to cardio workout. And I just kept showing up, and like it didn't matter. Like I would spend so much time there. I would spend an hour plus every time. Also, I wasn't working like a hard job then. I was like door dashing and doing school as well. So like, or I was working at, just a couple hours a week I was working. So I just spent more time in the gym. And even if it was just not working out, I just was in the gym.
And you were there like every day.
Yeah, I was going in there every day.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose to make sure that the habit stuck. And because I knew that I knew I didn't have to be in there 7 days a week for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But I knew that if I put in this like huge bulk, that it would make it so much easier to then go down to 6, 5, 4 days a week. And
that's
and
interesting.
then that would be like cake. Like now, like nowadays, like
that's smart.
4 to 5 days a week, that's nothing. Like
yeah, that's really smart actually.
Yeah. And I was working way harder in the gym then than I ever do now too. Like I had this gas, that fuel. Like if you're someone out there who has that fuel right now, like if you feel that, like, dude, use it. Cause it's not always going to be there. Time will heal, but that you can't manufacture that anywhere else. It's hard, that's real shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Later on, because you really started, I mean, you did initially work at Chili's when you moved down there.
Yeah.
And then you started door dashing in school and whatever. But you really started cooking for yourself and you were making legit meals and you started like buying very healthy groceries and you were sharing them online with your friend group. Like you have this little Snapchat group online that everybody, I guess you share your meals and your workouts and stuff. And we were all your family, like myself, Mark, I'm not sure who all from your dad's side watches. I know that my parent or granddaddy for sure does. And it's like, holy crap, like he's cooking better than we are. He's eating better than we are down there because you were just really committed to doing like basically protein and veggies and you cut out like sugar, you cut out soda. I mean, it was just amazing transformation. And I think that it wasn't like, transformation physically, you became super, super fit and all of that. But it was like your mental transformation. You were holding yourself to a higher standard and you weren't accepting any less. And it was just, and it bled into all these other areas of your life where a higher standard for the relationships that you had with girls or women, a higher standard for the work that you did. It just really extended well beyond. And I feel like sometimes success and discipline, it begets more success and discipline. And that's sort of how I feel like it started with that running. And it just bled into all these other areas, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what though. Here's like really, really good tie-in. The like, of course, I had the fuel but I had the fuel, but I knew what to do with it because of wrestling. Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like knew,
yeah, for sure.
Because like I could be upset and I could beat myself up. I could but I knew that like you got to think too, like I wrestled for 4 years. So there were times in wrestling where I went through heartbreak. I had breakups in high school. I had whatever. I was still wrestling. Mm-hmm. That was the one thing I always showed up for in my life, no matter what. And I wanted to quit wrestling so bad, like especially that last year. But I never did. I always showed up for wrestling. So it like, I knew that like, and it helped me back then. Yeah. It helped like getting that out and like pushing myself. So I just turned back into that. Yeah. I just put back on the Eminem playlist and just like treated it like I was wrestling again. And like, just the consistency. Like I knew how to be consistent. Like
muscle memory.
That's another thing.
Mental muscle memory.
I was the wrestling, doing that 6 days a week, all day on Saturday, like all that time, like that really taught me like where it's okay for me to spend. It was easier for me to be okay with being consistent and spending that much time in the gym or running or doing something every day because I had been forced to do it every day. Yeah. Locked in, no questions asked. You're going to get in serious trouble if you don't have your shoes on by 3:30. We're all doing sprints at the end of practice. And everyone's going home late. Yeah. So it's like I think that experience made it easier for me to show up for myself. Yeah. When I had that fuel, I knew exactly how to use it. Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting, like how it really was the foundation.
Yeah, I was not fighting myself during that time. I was not convincing myself to get up and go to the gym. Like, it was just like, I was recording myself. I'm like, all right, guys, day 3, I feel like shit. Legs are hella sore. I haven't ran in like, I haven't ran in like over a year and a half. But today we're gonna do 1 lap around the apartment complex and then do some push-ups. Yeah, that's literally how I started, just recording myself and sending it to my friends.
One of the things that you talked to me about in the pre-interview, we talked a little about Huberman,
Yes.
Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you've learned a lot, as do I. We learn a lot from podcasts and people that are guests on podcasts that are professionals in their field. And one of the things, I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but that people forget about the fundamentals, that really, if you're looking to like overhaul your life the way Jordan did, for example, the importance of sleep, water, and like movement, just these fundamentals, like just you really stress sleep, like how important it is, and how if your sleep is screwed up, it can actually compromise your success.
Yeah, definitely, like, there are, like, I believe in a routine. I believe in having, like, the core things that you stick to, and I know what makes me feel good and like what matters most for me to be successful in other realms, and sleep is absolutely first. Like I've like if someone, no matter like where their life is at, like it, and of course there's exceptions, but like if someone asks me for advice on anything, like I just want to feel better. Like I just want to be like, the first thing I always bring up is like, what time do you go to bed?
Right.
Like and the people are often surprised. Like, what time do you go to bed? What time do you wake up in the morning? Let's start there. Right.
Yeah.
And then let's go to how much water you're drinking, and let's go to how much you're eating and what you're eating. And so, yeah, it's absolutely like those things, like, do not take them for granted. Like,
another thing too is I feel
more.
like people always try to overhaul. I mean, many people try to overhaul their lives in one, like how you did. Oh, but even you didn't do it that way. You did it incrementally.
I did.
And that's what I think, one of the things you spoke about in the pre-interview was, like, you really stair-stepped it. You started this way, and then you went to this, then you went to this, and you added things on, and you acclimated through the process. And I think sometimes people just try to overhaul their life all at once.
Yeah.
And then they quit.
Absolutely. They go and sign up for the jiu-jitsu class, or they go and they buy the gym membership. And it's like, and I don't not support getting the gym membership, but for me, it was like, I proved it to myself at first. Like I started with running around my apartment complex. And then I did 2 laps, and then I did 3 laps, and then then I actually found the courage to walk into the gym. Like, I don't know. I proved it, and then I did get my. I feel like I earned my gym membership, and then like, it was.
Yeah, and you even started doing jiu-jitsu for a while. I mean,
yeah.
Do you get judged at all for your lifestyle, or how do your peers respond to the fact that you do live this sort of life? Because it's not super typical for a 21-year-old guy.
Right.
Do you feel that at all?
No one says much to my face. Really, like, people are very supportive. People are very, like, nice, and people often ask me for advice. And it's funny because there's people who I know have said things and like been like annoyed with kind of like my forwardness and how I'm willing to offer advice on anything from exercise to supplementing, and I'm just like, I'll because I want to help.
Yeah,
right?
no, I know.
And people, like, I know people have gotten annoyed by it, but those same people have, like, when they get COVID, or like when they're upset, they're the ones who come to me for advice because they know that I'm the most stable, responsible person at our age that they know. Like that's just the truth. Like, there are very few people that are at my age that are like,
care about these things.
They care about these things.
Yeah.
And so I get a ton of respect from people. I really do. And I really truthfully don't care if people don't like it, because that shows me something about them.
Right.
And there are so many people, and like, when I say so many, I mean like maybe a dozen. Like to me, that's so many people. Like, there's like at least a dozen people who have told me how much it means, like how much it's actually like been a big deal that I post what I do online. And I'm just super like open and raw about it. I don't edit any of the footage. I just pull out my phone. I'm like, all right, y'all, here's what I got from the grocery store. Like, like, I bought this, I'm gonna eat this for lunch, like, during the week. Like, I just do shit like that. Like, I'll show them what I got from the groceries. I'll just pull out my phone and show them a couple workouts. Like, here's what I do for my shoulders. And like, it doesn't even have to, like, it doesn't have to be that video that helped them, but it's like, oh, Jordan's in the gym. Like, Jordan's in the gym today. They can see 18 hours ago I was in the gym, and then 2 hours ago I was in the gym, like the way the Snapchat story. Because it's a 24-hour reel, and then after 24 hours, whatever I posted expires. Yeah. So every day, someone can pretty much go to their Snapchat, which they're already doing to do other bullshit. They're gonna see out of all their friends, you know, they are going to see my posts, and my posts consistently show them awesome food being cooked at home, me going to the gym, showing them how I shop. Like, you know, like that is.
Do you kind of use it? Do you kind of use that Snapchat group as your accountability?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say,
exactly.
I could see that.
Exactly. It's part of the reason why I started it is because I wanted to, I believe that, I forget where I heard this first, but I believe if you want to make a habit switch, one of the easiest ways to do it is to not keep it inside. Don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Oh,
if you really want to make a habit switch, like I think I heard it. It was phrased this way. It was like someone who is serious about saying they're going to stop drinking alcohol is not going to like tell you like, oh, I'm gonna stop drinking as much. Like they're going to be like, I'm done drinking. They're going to post it on Facebook. They're going to tell all their family members like, I'm done. Like they're going to like be loud and proud and like. Because
Uncle Jeff did that with his weight loss.
Yeah, the quieter you are about it, the more worried you are about basically relapsing that decision.
Yeah,
and the more likely you are too.
Yeah.
So you know, it's much more embarrassing to tell the whole world I quit, and then like, you know, like,
right. Yeah, totally.
So that's a little piece of advice. Piece of advice.
You're holding yourself accountable, or you know, that makes sense.
You force other people to hold you accountable because you just told them,
and you know they're going to be wondering. They start to see, yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the depression and anxiety epidemic among young people. You have stated that this is something that you've never really struggled with. I've never known you to really struggle with depression or anxiety. I'm curious what you yourself attribute that to, and I wonder if it could be your lifestyle, because what I do know is this: you do not do well when you go long periods with no active movement. Like I've known you like to be, especially I feel like since being out of high school, when you would come home to visit, like during the holidays when you lived down south still. And I was like, let's just veg around all day, because that's like my way, is just like veg around all day and chat and drink coffee and, you know, cook food or whatever. And you're like, I gotta get out of the house. I gotta go do something. Like for you, being active is so ingrained in you. And I feel like if that was taken away, like that would be the only thing. Cause I feel like something actually, there was one night where your mood was just bad and you actually said, I need to leave the house. Like that's what's going on. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like that in my water. Like if I can't drink water and if I can't work out, like I'm fucked. Like I turn into a different person. I'm upset. I'm like more moody. Like I definitely need that like almost daily reset of like exercising. And I believe that like your normal can be completely different from my normal.
Totally.
How I feel, like what my baseline is so different from other people, and like everything you eat and everything you drink and everything you do and how you feel and your stress levels go into like your baseline normal. And I think for so many people that have zero exercise in their weekly schedule or routine have this baseline of normal that keeps them at a more compromised state where like they're not just health wise, but like just like feeling wise, emotional wise, emotional regulation wise, like you're meant to like walk miles every day. Like you're meant to like move around like as a person. Like we live in a world where like we chill in our house and we drive our cars and like we sit at desks and you have to manufacture that into your weekly schedule. You know, I'm not saying you have to work out every day like I did, but
yeah, I think that's the only time I've ever seen you really. It's the only time I really saw you where you seemed like you were like
on edge.
Yeah. And which made me wonder like, oh, is it the fact that he's had this lifestyle for so long to some degree that he's never really suffered from these things that most kids do? I mean, most kids do. There's more that do than don't.
It's a huge factor. And I will say, I had these conversations with my girlfriend about like honestly, there are certain things that have happened in my childhood, like this period of years where I had a stepmom that wasn't so nice to me.
Yeah.
There are things that have happened in my life that some people would definitely turn it or receive as trauma or like hold on to it and like have these like things like be pivotal things that cause problems. And I don't know if it's just the way I mentally was framed it, or you guys were able to shelter me from certain bad parts of my life or coach me through things, but I don't like deal with anything that I've been through in the past. Like it's just not something you
don't hold on to things.
Yeah. And I live a healthier lifestyle today I don't work out as intensely and as hard as I used to, but I live a healthier lifestyle all around today than I ever have before. But I didn't have, all throughout high school, all throughout middle school, I didn't have like idiopathic depression or anxiety. Like it was from a reason. There was always a reason. I've got circumstantial depression or anxiety, normal stuff. Like I've never had to go through something like.
The only time I've seen you ever really go through that is like a breakup or something like that. That would be the only. Yeah, no, you're 100%. A happy kid. Like you've always been a very, very happy kid.
And I try to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I take a shit ton of supplements every day. I drink a shit ton of. I drink 4 40-ounce Hydro Flasks.
Same. Well,
every day.
Mine's a Stanley, but to be honest, I like Hydro Flasks better.
And 1 to 2 12-ounce coffees. So it's like.
Well, I have you beat on the coffee.
You do.
No surprise there.
So, it's just important shit to me. There's like 6 different supplements I take every night before I go to bed, just so I get better sleep at night.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
You really prioritize your health and your mental health, but I really think you prioritizing your physical health is what actually has helped your mental health without you even trying. So I think it's really interesting. It's actually a really good takeaway for me too, for us adults. I want to ask you about the pressure, something that I've been talking to your sister about, my daughter Jasmine, your sister, obviously your sister. I want to ask you about the pressure that kids have at like 16, 17, 18, that somehow they know what they want to, they should have their life figured out at that age to know what college to apply to or like what they're going to do after high school. And like, she's at the age now where she's 15 and a half and she gets asked all the time, oh, have you thought about what you, and I'm like, she's freaking 15. Like, yes, she has some kind of an idea, but the idea that you should know what you want to do or be as a 16, 17, 18-year-old to me is ludicrous. Like the more I sat and thought about it, raising you and now her at this age, what is the pressure like? Because I know right now she's feeling it a bit, but I know that she's also one that she gets more anxious about these kind of things. Do you feel like you had that pressure to like make up your mind about what you wanted to do at that age?
You're definitely pressured, and I think that it's part of the system that they have you in. Like, look, I'm no fan of the way that schools are. The whole way that the system works, and it's definitely a thing where it's like, okay, we're ending junior year, getting the senior year. It's like now you have to decide what you're gonna do for the rest of your life.
What are you gonna major in? What college?
It's like you basically feel like you're getting married to the rest of your life. Like it feels like you have to pick. Like you have to pick something, and like what's one thing that they don't go over is that like I don't know what exactly the statistic is, but it's like more than half of people like have like more than 2 career changes throughout the rest of their life. So,
yeah,
it's like for me, I wasn't too worried about it. I knew that you guys would always like
guide
me.
Yeah.
But really, real estate was just like,
yeah,
it just fell right into place. And it was something that I did love. I thought that it was cool, and I liked the idea of not having to do the same thing every single day. That fits in with more of my ADD.
Yeah,
and
you kind of fell into real estate a bit just because you come from a real estate family between our side and your dad's side. And so it was kind of natural, even though I raged against it. I did not want you to go into real estate at all, but you are such a natural at it that I'm glad that you did end up getting your license and going on that path. It's what brought you back to Sacramento. And as we wrap up, I just want to talk a little bit about that. I just want to basically, you got into real estate for young people basically who are looking to get into real estate. You got into real estate by getting a job, working in the back end of the business, learning the marketing, learning the business basically. And that's what really gave you the strength to go out on to start selling. How important was that? How important was that for your success?
Super important.
Yeah.
So I know that, I'm when you're born and raised by like big real estate brokers, both my stepdad and my dad, it's like it is in me, and I did learn a lot from that. But no, I learned the bulk of it from being from 8:30 to 5 o'clock Monday through Friday in San Diego, working in the front desk office. I was the administrative assistant for a real estate team of 15 agents down there for 8 months, I believe, from January to August. And that taught me the most about what it actually takes, the different kinds of agents, different kind of agent that I can be, the different, I was doing the grunt tasks, but it made the grunt tasks easier for me to do now that I am an agent. I don't,
Yeah. And it gave you, I feel like it gave you so much confidence going into the business to go out on your own and start selling and working with clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And it gave, there was an energy in that office too that was really beneficial for me.
Yeah.
To like, it really made me believe that I could do it, because there was other younger people, people in their late 20s in that office that were selling, multi-million-dollar homes. Yeah. And so I learned a lot from rubbing elbows with those kind of people.
Yeah.
And truthfully was around the top agents in the San Diego area. Yeah. I mean, really, great stuff.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have you back on and like maybe do a podcast episode on like young professionals and like pitfalls, or like, I don't know. I'll come up with something, but I feel like that's another great conversation. This is more as an aside so people know what you're up to, but I'm going to put in the show notes, your Instagram information. So if anybody wants to follow what you're up to online and work wise, fitness wise, and that kind of thing. And then, and we'll have to have you back on. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
No, you're not missing anything. Feel free to follow along on Instagram.
And if people want to follow your Snap story, they could always send you a DM on Instagram, and you can share.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, so it's a privated Snapchat story, because I don't want to push it on people. It's for you. If you want to be part of it, then let me know, and I'll add you to it on Snapchat.
Okay, so I'll put that I'll put his Instagram handle in the show notes, and we'll have him back on for a future episode to talk more about his work in real estate and maybe what he's been up against to try to make it as a young professional in that industry. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. For all of you guys who are listening, we will see you back here next week. Bye. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, please give it a like and leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys think. Also, if you're looking for more information about how to be a guest on the show, please go to our website at humanityunlockedpodcast.com. We only record shows in person, and we are located in Sacramento, California. Oh, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you tap that button so you can get updated on weekly episodes as they go live. Is that it? I think that's it. See you guys next time.